I love thrifting as much as the next guy, but why in the world are their prices climbing so high? Their inventory is free. Yeah, I get it, they have to keep the lights on and run the AC and pay their employees. But if small thrift stores can keep their prices low, why can't big thrift chains like Goodwill and the Salvation Army? Especially when we start to compare these used items to new items, it's now becoming more expensive to thrift. More expensive to shop secondhand than it is to buy something new. Let's find out today. Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all sorts of things at zero waste, focusing on free, easy, and fun ways to live low waste. And if I talk a little bit too fast for you, don't worry, there's a gear icon right here. You can change the speed to match whatever you need. Now, I've been wanting to make this video for a long time. It's literally been on my content calendar for probably a year and I just keep moving it because I didn't know where to start. I finally got the inspiration to finally pull the trigger and make this video when I saw a TikTok essentially had a little note like this stuck inside of a jar that said, "Don't buy this here at Goodwill," because it was like $4 at Goodwill for a used jar. Go to Walmart and get it for new at like $1.25. And it's true, and it's so sad. Used items should not cost more than a new item. A new item that takes brand new materials and resources to create. And again, the thrift store got it for free. So let's first talk about where thrift stores get their inventory. Thrift stores get their inventory from us. Maybe our clothes no longer fit, or we don't like the style anymore. Maybe we just simply never use that kitchen gadget or that piece of decor. Whatever it may be, we all find ourselves decluttering every now and then and dropping our old items off at the thrift store, in the hopes that we will limit our environmental guilt instead of putting it in the landfill. Now, donating is amazing, keep doing it. That's not the message of this video. But as you will see by the end of this video, it matters where you're donating and also where you're shopping. If you want to cut to the chase and learn about why thrift stores, big chain thrift stores like Goodwill, the Salvation Army, and Savers aren't really that great for the planet or us, you can check out this video. But I'll dive into it a little bit right now. Now, these mega thrift stores are often people's first choice because they're very popular. There's a whole lot of them. But because they get so many donations, they actually become so overrun with product that they don't even sell it all. Much of it ends up in the landfill and much of it actually ends up shipped overseas for some other country and other people to deal with. Yes, about 50% of the time, only half the stuff will get put onto the floor and potentially sold. But thrift stores also get garbage. They get stained items, ripped items, torn items, broken items. That stuff they probably just send right to the landfill. But also, they just have so much inventory, they simply cannot sell it all. Even though they claim the demand for thrifting is really, really high, we'll get to that later. So for this excess inventory, they do ship it overseas to other countries for them to deal with. When you're donating, be mindful of that. These large thrift stores really don't have the capacity to sell every single item that they receive, so instead, donate to a small thrift store. You could even sell the items yourself secondhand on sites like OfferUp, Mercari, Facebook Marketplace, and eBay. You could also give them away for free in a Buy Nothing group, and if you have never heard of a Buy Nothing group, you can check out this video. You could try a women's shelter or a homeless shelter instead. So many more options. Really just think outside the box before you head to your local Goodwill and give them your unwanted items. As I hinted at, one of the reasons that Goodwill is starting to charge so much money is because the demand, the thrifting demand is so high, even though their supply is free and their supply is endless. And even then, they have so much supply that they don't even have enough to sell. So why are they increasing the prices? Let's actually first dig into how much Goodwill makes. According to the Paddock Post, the CEO of Goodwill in 2022 made around $422,000. Not nearly as much as I was thinking for a mega corporation. But again, that's a huge inventory for a quote-unquote charitable organization and an organization that gets free inventory. What about the average employee? According to Indeed, the average Goodwill Industries hourly pay ranges from approximately $11.59 per hour for a sales associate to $24.45 per hour for a case manager. So annually, that would be around $24,000 a year for a sales associate and $51,000 a year for a case manager. Not a whole lot. Now, they do employ 105,000 people, and that is worldwide. So let's take a look at how much that equates in a whole year. I just took the average of the two wages for an average of $37,428 for a total of $3.9 billion just in employee wages. But how much does Goodwill make? According to Forbes, that is $7.6 billion per year. What about the rest of that money? That's like $4 billion unaccounted for. So that total $7.6 billion is not just profit that Goodwill is making. That also includes $1.5 billion in private donations, which goes towards the total, and then Goodwill donates that $1.5 billion as a tax write-off. Now, speaking of charity, they do give back to charity too. So that same Forbes article says that $5.6 billion was given to charitable services, but like, that math doesn't math because they need $3.9 billion just to pay their employees. But anyway, what do these charitable services even mean? So apparently most of Goodwill's charitable giving goes to career development centers and job search programs in North Carolina. But these are Goodwill job search programs, Goodwill career development centers for their employees. I also got on Reddit and found some like Reddit Goodwill insiders, and they say that a good majority of these stores are employed by people through these programs, and they get government assistance for these programs. So Goodwill's kind of giving the money to themselves to get employees and get more labor back. So is it really that charitable? I mean, it's better than hoarding it, I suppose, but in a way, it's kind of like jumping through hoops just to keep that money within Goodwill. And not to mention, again, they get government money for these programs too, so they're not even fully funding these programs themselves. So are they doing this out of the goodness of their hearts? I don't think so. Is that a little bit cynical? Probably. Goodwill was started as a truly charitable foundation, but they are profiting. Like, this is a for-profit thrift store. They're not exactly that charitable. And also, if you've ever been to Goodwill, at the register they ask, do you want to round up to the nearest dollar for XYZ charity? And you can say yes or no. And I'm sure plenty of people say yes, because what's an extra 40 cents out of your bill? It's going to a good cause, right? And it might be, but that's money that Goodwill can count towards their total profit, and then they can take out what was deemed a donation, and now they can donate your money on their behalf as a tax write-off. Instead of donating their actual profits, they're donating your hard-earned money. I'm not saying not to give to charity. Give to charity if you want to, but give that money directly yourself instead of allowing a billion-dollar corporation to give that money to that charity, not on your behalf, on their behalf, as a tax write-off. And then they can keep the profits instead of taking profits and donating some of that. Okay, maybe I'm picking on Goodwill a bit, but honestly, they are really the main culprit. Them and Savers are really the culprits for jacked up thrift store prices. All of that to say, Goodwill's not hurting for money. They do not need to be increasing thrift store prices this much when they are still profiting billions of dollars. If they get their inventory for free, why do prices keep going up? Now, there are some valid reasons why any thrift store, small or big, would need to increase their prices. For example, increased rent and increased utilities to keep the lights on. They might want to increase wages so that their employees are getting paid fairly. They do have a marketing budget, and they do have to buy things like tags and hangers and so forth. This one's not valid to me, but many economists will say they have to keep up with the demand. Basic economics also states that prices go up as demand goes up and supply goes down, right? But they have infinite free inventory, infinite free supply. Is the demand going up? Sure. But as we have already discussed, they're not hurting for inventory. They actually have a surplus of inventory that they have to throw away, recycle, and ship to other countries. If the demand was that through the roof, and maybe they sold 100% of their items, I could maybe see then if the prices went up. But regardless, whatever reason, Goodwill or economists deem valid for increasing prices, secondhand items should never cost more than new. Especially when these new items are cheaply made, they are made unethically for the environment and the employees. They are not made to last, they are not durable, they break easily. How in the world does that cost less than a used item that a thrift store got for free? It makes me so angry. And honestly, I couldn't find a truly valid reason on the internet for why their prices are going up other than to match demand and to match inflation. Giant scam. Your inventory is free. I want them to pay their employees fairly. I want them to be able to pay for their rent and whatever, but Goodwill is not hurting for money. So are thrift stores entirely to blame for this? I do think partially it is fast fashion and fast items from things like Shein and Temu and Walmart and Target and Amazon. So many of these companies and many more are known to use unethical labor, which consists of underpaying people, cutting corners for employee safety, cutting corners for the environment, and more in order to keep prices low and profits high. So just because a new glass jar at Walmart costs less than a secondhand jar at Goodwill doesn't mean it's entirely Goodwill's fault, but I do think that Goodwill should be responsible for ethical pricing as well, because it's honestly, they're also leaning into that unethical territory by charging way too much for secondhand goods that they got for free. And again, this is a corporate problem, right? Don't go into your local Goodwill yelling at the employees who are putting tags on the prices. They're not controlling it. It's corporate Goodwill. And another very common argument here is that resellers are the problem. So are they? Let's talk about that real quick. It's hard to say a hard yes or a hard no, but in my personal opinion, it's a no. Are resellers increasing the demand for thrifted items? Absolutely. But has thrifting as a trend, like for the general public, also gone up in recent years? Yes. So is thrifting going up just because it's more popular and people want to save the planet and save money? Is that why thrifting is becoming more popular, or is it just resellers? It's hard to pinpoint it just on the resellers when the general public is enjoying thrifting more in recent years than in decades past. That being said, let's bring it back to supply and demand. Thrift stores, especially large for-profit thrift stores, do not have to adhere to demand. Again, their supply is free and endless. And once again, if they're so worried about demand going through the roof that they need to increase prices to keep up with it, it just doesn't make sense from a supply standpoint. Not only because their supply is free, but because it's endless. And because they have so much supply that they are putting it off on other people. If they were worried about making money, they could sell more items instead of shipping much more of their inventory overseas to other countries. I have a study linked in the blog post down below from 2018. It is about Canadian thrift stores, but we have very similar markets in Canada and the US that says only 25% of what thrift stores, big chain thrift stores like Savers, receive ends up on the floor. Only 25%. So if they're increasing prices under the guise that thrifting is trendy and resellers are increasing the demand, why not put more on the floor? Why ship so much to other countries? Why throw so much away? It's kind of sounding like artificial inflation, if you ask me. Maybe that's a little conspiratorial, but that's what it sounds like. What they could do is sell more items for less than selling fewer items for more. And honestly, their profits would probably end up being the same. Like, if they're really worried about money, just sell more. Just keep selling more and more and more at cheaper prices. Honestly, if Goodwill had cheaper prices, I'd be much more willing to shop there myself. So what I think is actually happening is companies like Goodwill, Savers, the Salvation Army want to get in on this reselling trend themselves. They're seeing resellers pick up stuff from their stores. You know, maybe they bought a $4 Nike sweatshirt, new with tags, and a reseller said, new with tags, Nike? I'm going to upsell that for $50 or whatever. They're seeing that. The thrift stores are seeing that, and they want to do the same thing. They're seeing that resellers can get more for name brand. We want to get more for name brand. So they're still overpricing non-name brand, not nice used items, but they're way overpricing these, you know, new name brand items and then blaming the resellers. And I get it to a point, you know, if I had a brand new Stanley, new with tags, and I had this old crusty Stanley with stickers on it, and I was selling both at a garage sale, I would list them differently. So like, I can get that, you know, there is an inherent better value for something that's new name brand with tags as opposed to something that's not name brand, might be a little crusty and dusty and old. I get that, but I'm not claiming to be a charitable organization that gives back to its employees and the public. And quite frankly, it just goes against what a thrift store is. A thrift store is designed to be cheap, to be accessible for everyone, and not be expensive and just get in on the action of reselling. Now, what can we do about this? Keep decluttering. Keep donating, and keep preventing your stuff from ending up in the landfill, because our landfills are running out of space. If you did not know that, you can check out this video. But please, I've said it before and I'll say it again until I die. Stop donating to big chain thrift stores and stop shopping at them as well, as much as possible. I know that not everybody can, because maybe Goodwill's the closest to you. Maybe the Goodwill's the only option in your town. But if you have the option, check out a small thrift store, online shop secondhand instead, check out your Buy Nothing group, help out your neighbors. Don't give your money to these corporations. So keep donating, keep shopping secondhand as well, because shopping secondhand is so important, and you can learn more about the importance of shopping secondhand in this video. But in short, it reduces the amount of new products that has to be made, it reduces what gets sent to the landfill, it reduces emissions, and it usually saves you money. Really, those are the best two things that we can do, is to keep donating and keep shopping secondhand, but do it elsewhere. Because companies follow the money. They can increase their prices to the moon, but if we stop shopping, they're not going to make any money. We literally have so much power. Voting with your dollar is so important. So perhaps if we show them like, hey, we're not going to shop at your store because you're too expensive, perhaps they'll lower the prices. You never know. They might not. But the more of us that shop at small local thrift stores and not with these mega corporations, the better. I hope that you enjoyed this video, I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you feel inspired to boycott Goodwill and Savers and the Salvation Army and all of them. None of them are good companies. Even if they give back to charity, their charities are a little suspicious. What matters more is shopping at your neighbor's store instead of the store of a CEO. Giving stuff away on free on your Buy Nothing group to your neighbors, to people who need it, instead of giving it to a thrift store who's going to make money off of it. Like, if you're going to give it away for free, you might as well give it to your neighbors. Give it to somebody who actually needs it and not a company. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I really appreciate your time. I will see you in next week's video. If you want to learn more about thrifting, decluttering, I have a full thrifting and decluttering playlist. You can check them out below. But until then, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye, guys. So that same Forbes article... And also, if you... Did it just get bright? I've said this a million times. I do not need to say this again. Where am I? There was a typo. But until then, I don't know how many...